Hello, this is Terry Lindy with Destiny Management, and welcome to the Conquer Diabetes program. This week, I thought we'd talk about making and breaking habits. All of our lives, we've been doing things in a repetitive manner and making habits, some of them good, some of them bad. The longer that we've been doing something, the harder it is to change. So, with that in mind, we're going to go over some helpful tips to break bad habits and start making some new healthy habits. Enjoy the brief webinar. Hello, this is Terry Lindy with Destiny Management. Welcome to the Conquer Diabetes program. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about making and breaking habits. So all of our lives, we've been doing repetitive tasks and things over and over and over again and forming many habits. Some of them bad, some of them good. So what I want to go over this week is some tips to help you break some bad habits and some tips to form healthy new habits and make sure that they last. So let's get started. Let's start with what a habit is. A habit's a behavior pattern acquired by Let's start with what a habit is. A habit is a behavior pattern acquired by frequent repetition. Why we have habits are to do things without thinking. It assists us with simple things in life and increases our chance of surviving by being productive, where we don't have to focus on how to do every little thing. They enable us to tie our shoes, remember a phone number, drive a car, read a newspaper, and to perform any unaccountable number of actions automatically without thought. Without the ability to form new habits, we would surely have not survived as a species. We are the only animals that can live anywhere on Earth. We have developed habits which enable us to survive. Our earliest and most important habits are largely beyond our control. Mothers, fathers, and others who raise infants have enormous influence on habits and their formation. Most habits are formed from reinforcement, which is essential in their making. And there are two main types of reinforcement, positive and negative. Positive reinforcement builds confidence, increases the chance of repeating the habit, and in conjunction with positive results, habits become stronger and more fixed. Negative reinforcement creates resistance and anxiety. This can lead to habits that last longer in life, such as eating disorders and or scolding for not eating a particular food. The more often either positive or negative reinforcement shows up, the stronger the habit's going to be. And habits take a lot of time to develop. With each repetition of the habit, repetition of the habit, the strength of the habit is increased. As the repetitions increase, As the repetitions increase, the reinforcement has less of an effect. So the first effort and first repetitions are the strongest. When learning a new habit, for example, weightlifting, it's important to start slow and use proper technique, therefore reducing the risk of injury. And the first lessons have the most long-standing effect on how we develop the habit over time. That's why it's easier to make a habit than it is to break one. It's easier to create a productive habit than it is to overcome a bad habit. Another way we can develop habits is other ways to get habits are through chemical addictions. And this can be from food, caffeine, nicotine, drugs, alcohol, all of those can develop a chemical addiction, and that becomes a habit because your body needs that chemical as you give it more and more over time. The habits are reinforced by chemical action on the brain, and these become addictions. These are even tougher to break than ones formed by positive and negative reinforcement. So how do you overcome bad habits? The first step is to admit that you have the habit and then identify what triggers the habit. Where does the habitual behavior happen? What time of day? How do you feel when it happens? Are other people involved? Does it happen right after something else? Trying to identify the triggers will help you understand why you have this habit, and then understand that there is a way to stop. The habit does not control you. You can control the habit. And you want to focus on why you want to change. Why is it important to you? There's got to be a good reason to stop this habit. Is it bringing on negative consequences, or is it detrimental to your health? Identifying these factors are a big step in overcoming bad habits. Another useful tool is enlisting friends' support, family and friends, or other people that you know that might have the habit and that have changed, that can be role models. Be aware of the habit as you've identified these triggers, and slowly you'll be able to put in new habits. There is a behavior modification tool called habitual interference. And what this is a break in the habit. So when you've identified the triggers and you're going through a habit and you understand that you are progressing through this habit and conscious of it now, then you can make a conscious attempt to put something else in its place. For example, if you have a habit of eating chocolate when you're stressed, you might do this without even thinking about it at first. But once you've identified the issue, now when you are stressed, you are thinking about chocolate, you can identify that that's a trigger, the stress is the trigger, and that chocolate is the response. Now, what could you replace the chocolate with? So maybe it's a sweeter, healthier option at first, like a nutrition bar or something along those lines. But breaking the trend is helpful in changing bad habits and putting in new habits. And that system is called habitual interference. So a couple other ways of doing this are finding a deterrent and aversion therapy. So finding something that's a negative outcome of what you're doing, like the habit of eating chocolate, maybe that's weight gain, or maybe that makes you fall asleep with low energy. It affects your blood sugar, it affects your health. So some sort of an aversion therapy where there's a negative consequence could help in breaking a habit. The best way, though, is to do it with positive reinforcement and reward yourself for identifying the negative habit and establishing new and better habits. There are many reasons why people can't become motivated to begin or continue an exercise or nutrition program. Lack of time, lack of willpower, you become bored, you don't have a support system. There's countless excuses for being inactive, and other reasons have been known to be that the person fixes. One other tool to use is forming a non-habit. So once you've identified the triggers and you know you're going down a non-productive path, put something in its place, such as an exercise program or eating a nutritious meal that's prepared for you, something that you can just put in easily and that is healthy and it's going to make you feel better and establish a good habit down the road. A good example is if you're having a tough time breaking a habit of reaching for candy when you're hungry at work, you could try to avoid the candy dish, but you might fall back into the habit when you can't resist your hunger. Bringing in a Tupperware of dried fruit and nuts to keep at your desk gives you another snack option. As you repeat the new non-habit behavior, the impulse to follow the new routine develops. Eventually, when you see the rewards of the new habit, you have more energy and less of a sugar crash. The urge to keep doing this behavior outweighs the desire to pursue the old habit. Positive and negative reinforcement works for creating healthy habits as well. It's best to set up a reward system when you have established a new habit versus having to have a negative reinforcement such as pain or anxiety to prevent you from doing something. Some tips for making healthy habits include commit to 30 days. It takes repetition. Doing something once or twice isn't enough. Do it as often as possible to establish a strong habit and try and make it a daily routine or pattern. Even if you're not, say, exercising every single day, you want to at least be thinking of it and how you might be able to fit in an extra 5 or 10 minutes. If you could do 5 minutes every single day of the year, that's going to go a lot further than doing an hour for a couple weeks and then not establishing the habit by not doing it every day and falling back into old habits. Start simple, start small. So that's where, if it means starting with 5 minutes, that's where you start, and then you can build from there. Don't feel you have to do 60 minutes of exercise every single day to get a habit. Start small and simple, establish good routines, and the habits will come. Stay consistent. Consistency is always a key to establishing habits, and writing down and making realistic goals are another big key. And here are some steps to goal setting. You want to be able to identify the goal and make it as detailed as possible. So don't just say, I want to manage my blood sugar or I want to lose weight. Be specific. I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to bring my blood sugar down to 150. And set a deadline for it. It needs to be in a realistic time period. It can't be tomorrow, for example, but set it within 3 months. But you need to make sure that you set a deadline as a benchmark to see if you've achieved the goal and you've been making the habit. Now, the next steps are big keys for this, and most people neglect to do this, but you need to list the obstacles to overcome in reaching your goal, identify a support system, whether that's doing research online, friends, family, support group, Facebook groups, other people that have had similar experiences. You need support to be able to ask questions and get answers and not just try and figure things out for yourself that you aren't an expert at. Listing the skills and the knowledge required will help you identify what you do know and where you need to use outside resources to help you reach this goal. And with all of this information, you can develop a plan of action and put it in writing. So don't just think about it here and there. Develop your plan of action. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but put it in writing so that you can review it periodically and get you back on track if you start to stray. The last step is to list the benefits, and this is where the positive reinforcement comes in. So set a good substantial reward for reaching your goal and establishing a healthy habit. This will be critical to help keep you motivated through the tougher times. It's normal to fall back here and there. The key is to stay as consistent as possible and get back on track. So I hope this has helped give you some information on how to break bad habits and make healthy habits. Remember, we're always here for you. If you need to contact us anytime with questions, we'll go over any answers and get them back to you as soon as possible. See you at the next meeting.